server. So this is kind of an interesting direction, as opposed to sort of bringing the server to the client. We try to bring the client to the server. And Errai is really based around this idea of a distributed application as opposed to a sort of a tiered application. I mean, of course, there is a natural client tier and a server tier, but what we've tried to really do is try to blur the distinction between that. And with Errai, you know, one of the main priorities for us was sort of eliminating boilerplate. And so these are kind of like the main things about the ideas around the project. And I'm going to get to a code demo because I like to show code because code is cool. A little, you know, it's kind of, you know, dovetails off of what like Ray and the team at Google have done. They've done a fantastic job at sort of making runtime performance something which, like a really fantastic attribute of the Google Web Toolkit. And so, you know, we've kind of taken a step back, and so, you know, performance has not really been our #1 concern. But what I'm going to say is there's a but after that. You know, we have this Errai bus technology, which is actually ridiculously fast and scales to millions of messages per second and things like that. So I mean, there's parts of Errai which are actually like where performance matters. We've really focused on it, and you know, Errai is really aimed at the enterprise. You know, for both desktop and mobile. And one of the other things that we focus on is being as metadata driven as possible. A little bit of history of the project before I get to all this. So, you know, Errai was originally started as a sort of a pure research project at Red Hat. We discovered GWT. I believe it was right after I was hired in 2007, and it was really interesting technology. As you know, Red Hat now owns JBoss, and we do a lot of Java middleware at the company, and so we had this new technology here that was able to take Java code and translate it down to JavaScript, and we found that to be quite a compelling proposition. And so we started doing a lot of research into it. We've got, you know, I'm an R&D engineer at Red Hat. That's what I do. And at the time, I was kind of like freelancing it and just sort of like, you know, what can we do with this? And so we began that investigation. I kind of began it in earnest in 2008. Michael Neal, who was on the Drools project at the time, was actually kind of the guy who originally started in 2007. I kind of came into it in 2008. The project wasn't called Errai at that point in time. The first thing that came out of our R&D efforts was this thing called the Message Bus Framework. Actually, I want to. What's interesting, a bit of errata here, is Ray Cromwell here. Actually, I believe he wasn't working for Google at the time. I actually met him at Google I/O. I believe it was the Google I/O of 2009, and he had a booth like in the developer developer sandbox. And what's funny is that like you know one of the very first people that I told gave the idea about this whole idea of this bus was Ray Cromwell. We had a conversation about how it could be pulled off. Using GWT, and so it's kind of interesting to point that out. Yeah. That in the history of this project.
Well, at the time, like just as an aside, Comet and Ajax stuff was still kind of like black magic. There weren't many people doing it, like real time, like messaging between the client and the server. WebSockets didn't exist yet. It was just kind of being talked about, and you know, he showed me this demo that really impressed me, which was like stuff updating on the client in like real time, and I was like, I want that. I don't want to pull the server like all the time with GWT RPC.
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of interesting. And so this is the point in time we were really just doing research, right? We were building all these little components around it. You know, the second thing that came, and this is kind of interesting because because I'm not really here like talking about Vaden. Like I said, I'm happy that June has had me here today. And, you know, Errai's kind of different from Vaden. You know, Vaden, you guys are very like, you know, you guys have this wonderful, beautiful widget toolkit, right? You know, we started to do that, right? We started to build this widget framework to kind of do that. And we decided, you know what, that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to focus on widgets. We dropped that idea. And so, you know, we moved on. Once we decided we weren't going to focus on that, and we developed this third component, and it was based around this idea of CDI events. And up until now, at this point in the history of Errai, we had used Gin as its DI framework. Gin's really, really cool. I'm a big fan of Juice. I'm a friend of Bob Lee's, actually. Personally, and also his friend Donji Prasanna. Actually, were my triangle of friends. Actually, it was quite kind of hard to turn my back on this. There's a reason why we ultimately had to drop Gin, and I'll get into that. We had to develop a new DI framework in the that would run in the browser in GWT, and it was used to support the CDI specification in the browser, and ultimately became known as Errai IOC, which I'll show you guys today. We went on and created a code generation framework, and then eventually we added this marshalling framework that was designed to develop a common marshalling system for this Errai bus that I just talked to you about. I originally pitched the idea to Ray here, to make it work across all the application tiers. And what's interesting about this is that Errai bus, in its early infancy, predated Socket.io in having this transparent channel over Comet and WebSockets. We were actually, as far as I know, we didn't really have a stable project, but GitHub will speak to this. But we actually had one of the first frameworks that could actually abstract away the difference between WebSockets and Comet. We built this Errai bus framework that would actually, if WebSockets were available, it would test the browser, and we actually used JSNI, and we would test to see if WebSockets was there, and we'd actually ask the server, the Errai bus and the server, are you capable of talking WebSockets? And if so, and we support this today, it would preferentially switch over to WebSockets, and if not, it would fail over to Comet. And this allowed us to sort of use whatever the best transport channel was available. And that was 2010. That was crazy. WebSockets was super unstable. I was having to fix it every 2 weeks because it kept coming out with a new draft specification. Chrome kept breaking every 5 weeks or something. But anyways, so now we're here up to 2.1, and we have lots of crazy stuff going on. We have client-side JPA in Errai. This is probably one of the craziest things we've ever done. We've taken the Java persistence annotations specification, and we've layered it on top of HTML5 offline storage as the backing store. We support a surprising amount of this specification, believe it or not. I'm going to try and demo that to you today.
Can I say I'm amazed because a couple years ago when Google Gears was big, I kind of threw out a thing on the Google Web Toolkit mailing list. I was like, some crazy bastard out there could one day make a JPA implementation that uses Google Gears storage, right, for GWT. I never thought anyone would do it.
Yeah, well, Red Hat spent a lot of money on this one, and we pulled it off. One of the smartest engineers I've ever worked with, Jonathan Firth. I wish he could have been here tonight. He's actually in San Francisco, but he had other obligations. He's giving a talk. Did this and led the effort on this. We do a lot, we don't support dynamic queries. You can't do entity manager.create query, but we support named queries. So we take advantage of the fact that we can discover these named queries in their annotations, and then we can actually pre-compile the queries and generate, using GWT's, deferred binding framework. We can actually generate these queries ahead of time, and this is all stored in JSON data and the offline data storage. We support lots of things. We support order by and joins, all other crazy stuff that you wouldn't believe that we'd actually manage to support. We actually do, believe it or not. The other thing that we support is it's a new framework for providing entity to widget bindings transparently. Now GWT does this actually, and this seems to be a bit of a we're kind of reinventing the wheel, but I'll get back to that later. So I've already mentioned that we support CDI, JSR 299. This has been a feature of Errai for a while. We support a substantially larger cross-section of the specification. We have this new framework called Errai UI. Now, this isn't a widget framework, actually. What it is it allows you to use HTML5 templates and then bind them back into Errai components, and I'm going to show that to you. I didn't want to spend too much time on slides because, it's just better just to show people how this stuff works. And I'll probably make less mistakes if I actually sit down and do this. Let me put my screen into mirroring mode here. Arrangement, where is it here? Oh, mirror displays, there we go. So now I have this is a JPA demo here. I'm gonna get to that because that's kind of cool. But I just want to show you like the basics of it, right? Now, like I said before, like unlike Vaden, we're not really a UI focused framework. We're really just about the programming model aspect of it. So I have a blank project here. If I can actually make my thing, I got this is like a standard Errai project layout. Now, we've added these tiers under the client library in our processing called local and shared. There's a reason for that, and I won't get into. Well, the main reason is this: like I said, we focused on distributed applications, and right now GWT widgets like get really like if you discover GWT widgets in like a class scanner on the server, like with reflections right now, they have static initializers and stuff that try to like call like GWT dot whatever, and that causes like very upsetting stack traces at runtime. So one of the things that and I know that Ray says that that's one of the things you guys are probably gonna work on. We're
Is the stack traces?
Well, no, I mean using widget classes in server code.
Yeah, there is ongoing. There was some work that was landed a while ago to allow GWT.create to run on the server.
Yeah.
And like the first part of it is to make you be able to create like internationalization messages out of it. But later on, they're trying to get more and more of it to run on the server.
Yeah. Well, that's just the main reason. It's just the class loader would get mad at us. So we just separate this out. So what I'm going to do is in this local package, which is that's kind of silly. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's just like get rid of all of this here for a second. This is why you don't go and drink beer before you do this.
Like 2 of those.
Yeah. So everyone can see. So I'm just going to create a simple class here. This is an Errai class. Well, no, it's like a CD. It's a CDI bean running in the client, and I'm actually going to go and use this standard, application scoped annotation here. Now you'll see that this is like standard Java X Enterprise stuff. This is standard Java EE. Now a lot of people get freaked out by Java EE, and I know that I'm not always in polite company when I defend it, but I think EE6 is actually a pretty good set of APIs. It's not your EE of 5 years ago. It's really, really lightweight. Almost all of EE6 is annotation driven. There's like
I still have nightmares of having to make the home interface and the local interface.
and none of that exists anymore in EE. It's EE6 is like all Pojo based from So I mean, people need to like calm down. All right. So anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and create this like very simple bean. I'll call this whatever. On app load, I can call this method whatever the heck I want. This post construct basically says that as soon as this bean is constructed, the container should call this method. And we'll go ahead here and I'll just go, window.alert, hello world. And if you've worked with GWT before, this won't freak you out too much. Now I'll load up dev mode here. This is like a blank project. All I've done is introduce a single class. I put an annotation on it. I said, and there we go. Actually, it came off to the side. So what we did is like we did what would happen in an EE6 container. If we actually had deployed this exact same Pojo class, and we'll go ahead and do something like that in a second. With application scope and put a post construct method on it, the container would have discovered it and it would have called that method on it as soon as it had deployed the bean. And so that's kind of cool. And so we support like lots of like interesting things here. I'll go and create another class here. We have app. I'm going to create an interesting class. We'll call it capitalizer. And maybe what does capitalizer do? Well, it probably does what it says it does. I like to believe in self-documenting code, so it's gonna capitalize the string for me. Like so. This is of course the most redundant like utility class in the world, considering that Java of course has 2 uppercase. as part of the Java lang string. But that's not the point. The point is to demonstrate the fact that this is like we're supporting this DI framework within the actual. Now, one interesting thing about this, and this is actually a big difference between Juice and CDI, is CDI does allow private field injection, which meant we had to do some really crazy stuff to make this work, and we did make it work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hello world here, and I'm going to go capitalizer dot capitalize, and we'll just wrap this hello world in there. I'm going to save that. Let's go back to my dev mode here. Oh crap! It's a little bit upsetting. I don't have a quick way. It's probably just faster for me to restart than to go looking for that URL. So I'll just restart that. I shouldn't have killed my Firefox there. We'll start that back up and look at that there. So like it just simply magically injected that bean in the actual client and wired that up, and we passed it in there, and that was all magical and cool. So this is sort of like this is more of like a container-oriented way of doing DI as opposed to sort of doing it manually. We basically have a whole bunch of beans that exist. This is an application scoped bean, and this bean doesn't actually have any annotations on it, but it's an implied bean because we inject it here, which basically means, according to CDI spec, it's a dependent scoped bean. So it gets a new one gets created at all of the injection sites, and so that's one of the cool things we've done. Now, I don't have much time, so I'm make you take my word for it that we implement like large amounts of the specification. There's lots more to it. There's like qualifiers, and we have a bean manager that lets you look things up dynamically and create new instances dynamically and all other stuff. I don't have time to show that. But what I'm going to show you, because it's probably the more interesting of things, is the ability to sort of interact with the server-side CDI. So I actually have the CDI container running here in dev mode. So essentially, this is running in Jetty. This is like the basic. This is the standard GWT dev mode. The difference is that we've basically done a little bit of work here to make all the EE6 services be available in the standard GWT dev mode, and so that it works fine, as you would expect when you run. And this isn't super dev mode yet, although we are going to support that. So I'm going to create this server-side bean, and I'll call it the server-side bean. It's that's very self-documenting. Once again, this is application scoped, and this time, what I want to do is I want to interact with the server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create, say, observes hello world. Now, CDI has this concept of type-safe events. Now, I don't have a hello world to observe yet. I'm going to go ahead and define that now. But what this basically does is it says, well, whenever anything within this application fires this hello world event, I want this method to get invoked, and I want to observe that event, and I want to observe the state in it. Now, here's that shared package I was talking about before. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and define one of those hello worlds here. Now, I said before, Errai has its own marshalling framework, and that's true. And we've just gone ahead and made this hello world marshallable by declaring it portable. So what I'm going to do is I'll just create a. In fact, one of the nice things about Errai's marshalling framework is it allows immutable entities. So I'm going to go ahead and create this message thing here and go constructor. And, now I need to help it a little bit. I need to say, look, this constructor here maps to that field. So that parameter of that method and that constructor maps to that field, and that'll actually tell Errai's marshalling everything it needs to know about constructing that object on both sides of the server and the client. And so we have that there now. And so when the app loads now, let's send a message to the server. Let's just go ahead and inject an event. Like I said before, this is a standard CDI event, type-safe event, and now, like I said, EE6 all Pojo based. So it's like, once again, the event is like a nice Pojo, and so I'm going to go hello world event, like so. Instead of when the app loads this time, I'm just going to go, hello world fire new hello world, hello from the client, and I'll go over to my server-side bean here, and now just go create a print statement here. Received from client. hello world.get message. Let's just go ahead and restart that. I don't know. I don't have the. I could have just hit the refresh on the server side thing, I guess, but whatever. But there you go. You can see that it started up and it sent a message, and there it was. It was that type safe event was actually received on the server and printed out from there, right there in the server console there. And so that's actually like this is actually kind of a really awesome, awesome programming pattern. It's like it's type safe, just like with RPC, but it's also completely asynchronous. And I'll that might be the last thing I have full time to demo. But let's go ahead and let's.
Is that marshalling over WebSockets or XHRs?
It supports both. The protocol, we have our own JSON protocol. We actually create our own static marshalers at compile time, as part of the deferred binding phase. But we actually generate static marshalers for both the client and the server. So we actually are deploying static Java code. We have a code generation framework, which if anyone's interested in looking at, I'm more than willing to show them.
I think the context of my question, as I was guessing whether or not you could observe a server event from the client.
That's what I'm about to show you. That's what I'm about to show you. I'm about to preempt you. So I'm going to go ahead and here I'm going to create a simple label. And I'm going to call it simple label because I like I said many times during this discussion already that I like self-documenting code. So let's come back here and create another type safe event. I'll call it server time. Why not? Because I think all clients should know what time it is on the server. And I think they should know that in real time. How's that? Current time millis. I really like immutable objects. I think that mutable state is the source of all bugs. So I'm going to go here and tell it that this is the actual field that this actually maps to, and that will tell Errai that it can marshal that like so. I'll go back to my app here. Now remember, I created this observer, this observes method on the server here. Well, it turns out we support CDI on the client as well. So I'm going to go observe server time, and if I go observe server time here and then goes simple label, that's set text, oops, server time dot get turn time millis, string value of, let me just wrap that in a string like so. That label doesn't really do anything quite yet. Let's add, and I injected this simple panel there. I'm just going to go ahead and add this. Like I said, Errai's not a UI framework. We're just using plain Quint UI. This is not a problem that we really want to solve. What we're concerned about is sort of just this programming model stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and add that here, and I'm going to go here to observe server side bean. And when we observe a hello world, I'm going to do something really, really crazy here. You probably shouldn't do this because every single time someone loads their app, it's going to start a new thread. But I'm not really worried for the purpose of this demo. What I really want to do is just demo to you the asynchronous nature of this. So don't ever write code like this. If you write code like this, you're doing it wrong. I'm going to create this executor here. In fact, I'm being very non-linear here because of how fatigued I am. But I'm going to inject this server time bean in here, event firing thing. Now remember, right? This is the exact same interface. Actually, no, it's not the exact same interface. I imported the GWT event here. There we go. Java X. This is the same Java X Enterprise event that I had injected here to send that initial hello world event to the server. So this is really pushing home the fact that this is truly a distributed application. And I'm going to go ahead and go server time event, fire new server time, system.current time millis, like so. Now, of course, there's extra things here. I'd say, there's no time. every 100 milliseconds, time unit milliseconds. So every 100 milliseconds, we'll refire this event just for fun. And if I go back to my app here and make sure I haven't made any mistakes, looks like fun to me. We'll just go ahead and restart this, and hopefully we'll have answered Ray's question. With a simple. Oops, no crap. The old dev mode didn't want to die. Yeah, no, I don't want to quit. Apparently, I have a hanging process. It's no longer hanging. So I'll start this up again, and what I should see this time, if all goes according to plan, which apparently didn't, I was expecting to send. Let me see here. What did I do wrong? I didn't get my received from client this time. Oh, there it is. No, so oops. Maybe, I think Firefox is sometimes weird. Sometimes it caches the old JavaScript, and I had to do a Control Shift refresh, and that fixed it. But this is now these events are being observed from the server and fired from the server using standard CDI. You can see that I injected this standard CDI event handler here, and I'm firing it from this executor service, which got kind of wired up and triggered by the initial